Thank you all for joining us today for this meeting. Preliminary to starting, I'm actually going to make a couple of announcements. We're going to take some matters out of order on this agenda. We're going to begin with the appointment of the SACJAB chair. She has another appointment that she needs to make, and I don't want to hold her up. Following that, we're going to take the issue on 844. We know there are a number of interested parties in the audience, and rather than holding you in abeyance for most of the day, we think that it would benefit all to take that out of order. We'll then move to the regular agenda, followed with the actually I think we'll take Prop 47 next, because we have a great deal of audience interest in that, and then move to the consent agenda. As I make those remarks, I'm reminding everybody in the audience who wishes to speak on any matter to fill out a speaker's card. We will hold comments to a minimum of 2 minutes on any item you wish. Pardon? Maximum. I'm sorry. Maximum. Getting a lot of help from the crowd here. If you don't speak 2 minutes, you have to sit down. You never heard that before in a meeting, did you? So we're going to go with that maximum of 2 minutes. So I'd encourage everybody, please fill out a speaker's card. Your name will be called. We'll do a number of names in order, and so you know you're up next. With that, I'm going to ask, go directly to the chair's report. Roll call? Oh, I apologize. I'm looking at one agenda. I'm sorry. Let's do roll call. I did it already in my mind, so I didn't think it was necessary for the body.
Ms. Penner?
Present.
Mr. Kernan? Mr. Powers?
Present.
Mr. Groudon?
Here.
Mr. Dean?
Here.
Ms. Perez?
Here.
Ms. Brown? Here. Mr. Ortola?
Here.
Judge Garrett?
Present.
Mr. Bejarano?
Present.
Mr. Budnick?
Here.
Mr. Steinhardt? Ms. Tornor?
Oh, here, yeah. Extra here.
Okay, we have 11 members. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Also acknowledging the presence of our general counsel, Aaron McGuire, today. He has a number of duties, but one of importance to everybody on the board are recusals as we approach particular subject matters, and so he's prepared and ready to do that. And now I think I can go to some information items, asking our chair to do her report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Katie Howard. Happy to be here today. I will attempt to keep my executive director's report within that 2-minute time frame today. And I want to start with a personal note of personal privilege. My son is graduating from high school this afternoon. So I'm really thrilled about that. And thank you, everyone. It was a lot of work for all of us. But anyhow, I will need to leave no later than 1:45 and may need to just excuse myself at that point if the business isn't wrapped up. I do want to give a lightning fast executive director's report. The state budget negotiations are wrapping up. There's not much that I can share here anyway, but we are closely monitoring all of those activities with the Department of Finance and expect the budget votes will be coming on time. Concerning the Burn JAG tentative timeline for the new grant cycle, we've been advised that the solicitation will be released in July of this year. We'll be making the necessary adjustments to the timeline and we'll keep you posted. We plan, if everything stays on track, that the board will approve the RFP in September and bring recommendations back in February of 2018. Turning to Title II, I'm looking forward to your consideration of the appointment of the new State Advisory Committee Chair in just a few minutes. And connected to the work of the State Advisory Committee, we will be holding 2 public input meetings to help identify priorities for the next 3-year Title II plan cycle. Looking forward to those. One here in Sacramento on June 21st and one in Los Angeles on September 20th. The RSAT solicitation, Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Grant, which is one of our federal grants, That solicitation was released on June 2nd, just a few days ago. We're working on our application. It's due in July, and we do not yet have the allocation amounts. So again, we'll keep you informed on that when we get notification of the allocation amounts. Our annual Community Corrections Partnership legislative report will be completed and released by July 1st. Want to let you know the work on the juvenile regulation revisions is moving along very, very well. The work groups have begun their work, and we're pleased with all that's going into that. And thanks again to Chief Brown and David Steinhardt, who's not here, co-chairs of that really significant effort. I believe that's all I need to cover. So with no further ado, back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And that is the quickest executive director's report on record. We are delighted. I've now turned to agenda item F and invite Mary Joles to come forward and present on this.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. I am Mary Joles, the Deputy Director of the Corrections Planning and Grants Program Division.
I'm not sure your microphone's on.
How about now? Okay, so I am presenting agenda item F, which requests board approval of the appointment of Ms. Rachel Rios as Chair of the State Advisory Committee on Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, otherwise known as SACJAB. On November 9, 2016, Governor Brown made changes to SACJAB membership, and this board is responsible for appointing the Chair of the State Advisory Committee. The staff recommendation is for Rachel Rios to be appointed as Chair. Ms. Rios was highly qualified to serve as the SACJAB Chair. Ms. Rios was at the Division of Juvenile Justice for years, serving in positions including Chief Deputy Secretary and Director of Juvenile Parole Operations. In the last 5 years, she's been the Executive Director of La Familia Counseling Center, a community-based organization here in Sacramento. Staff would like to thank SACJAB Vice Chair Carol Biondi, who has served as acting chair and who greatly assisted the BSCC during this transition. Staff would also like to thank board member David Steinhardt for assisting in the initial coordination activities of the board's 2 juvenile standing committees, SACJAB and the Juvenile Justice Standing Committee, consistent with the board's strategic planning direction to staff in February. David Steinhardt will serve as the Juvenile Justice Standing Committee's liaison to SACJAB. As SACJAB Chair, Ms. Rios will serve ex officio on the Juvenile Justice Standing Committee. Staff recommends approval of this this appointment, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to appoint Rachel Rios.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah, public comment.
Public comment on the matter? Seeing none, I would like to comment. Rachel, would you join us at the podium? Katie and I spent a great deal of time with Rachel and repeatedly encouraged her to take this position. She is a very busy woman running an incredibly important, vital CBO in this community, and I want to express my appreciation for your willingness to do this. This is no small obligation, and I'm delighted that you took this on, and from the board, our appreciation to you for what you are doing, and I'd invite you to say a few words to us today.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you so much for your vote of confidence. It is really an honor to be able to serve as the chair of this very important committee. I think my experience working in juvenile justice and then coming back out to the community-based organizations, it's so important to see that critical role and bring that back to the work of this very important committee. There's a lot of wonderful members. This new committee has a lot of energy and excitement, and it's a great time in terms of developing the work plan for the next 3 years. I look forward to working with the BSCC staff and with this board in terms of carrying out those directives for the next 3 years and developing some plans for our community that is so important.
Thank you so much. Anything further? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Now, as noted, we'll move to item D, 863, and I invite John Prince. I'm sorry, 844.
Madam Chair, before we begin this item, pursuant to Government Code Section 1090 and 1091, I want to note for the record that Sheriff Groudon has a remote interest in the meaning of those code sections. Therefore, we're going to ask Sheriff Groudon to step out of the room while we discuss this item.
And I misspoke, it's item H, I apologize, John, which is why you gave me that confused look. Won't be the last one of the day.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I'm John Prince, Deputy Director with the CFC Division with BSCC. I'll be presenting agenda item H, which is the agenda item that requests approval of conditional award recommendations totaling $250 million submitted by the Senate Bill 844 Executive Steering Committee and a $20 million conditional award to Napa County as authorized by SB 844. The recommendations for the 8 fully funded counties projects are as follows.
John, would you mind moving that microphone up just a bit?
All right. One large county project award to $70 million to Contra Costa County. One medium county project award of $30 million to Placer County. 6 small county project awards, $25 million to each of the following counties: Placer, El Dorado, Mendocino, Lassen, and Mono, as well as a $24,516,000 award to Modoc County. As you can see on the board there. There is a $484,000 in unawarded funds that will remain in the small county category for possible use in the event of relinquishment at that time. As you are all aware, SB 844 was passed in June 2016, and this round of funding included new requirements of the applicants. Most notably, that the projects will include in-person visiting and a 10-year moratorium on leasing beds in the facilities, and that they describe the sexual abuse reduction efforts in the facilities that will be funded. In September 2016, the board approved Sheriff Jeff Dean from Ventura County as chair to the SB 844 ESC. Sheriff Jeff Dean, our esteemed board member, graciously agreed to chair the SB 844 ESC. BSCC staff would like to thank Sheriff Jeff Dean and all the members of the ESC for their dedication and commitment to this very important process. The RFP was released in December 30th, 2016, and the proposals were due back to the BSCC on February 28th, 2017. The BSCC received 12 proposals, 3 from large counties, 1 from a medium county, and 8 from small counties. The total dollar amount requested from the 12 counties is approximately $355 million. The ESC convened for its final meeting on May 17, 2017. The purpose of this meeting was to allow the ESC members the opportunity to discuss the scores and make adjustments based on the ESC discussion and feedback. The ESC established a ranked list of proposals, which identified the 8 counties recommended for funding, which you see on the board there. After this meeting, the BSCC research staff analyzed and verified each of the rater scores based on the criteria in the RFP and confirmed the ranked list. The BSCC has also received the financial and initial scoping documents for the $20 million conditional award for Napa County for its SB 844 project. Staff recommends the board approve the conditional awards to the 6 small counties, 1 medium county, and 1 large county that ranked highest on the list established by the SB 844 ESC. Staff also recommends that the board approve a $20 million conditional award to the Napa County for its SB 844 project. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking to the board for, yes.
I emailed Attorney McGuire this morning to advise that I sit on assignment in Contra Costa County, and it's my understanding, as an assigned judge. So it's my understanding that I'm permitted to be here while this is discussed, but to not vote on it.
Correct, Judge Garrett. You may abstain and you may remain in the room for the discussion because you do not have a financial interest in the award of the project.
All right, I wanted the record to reflect that I do intend to abstain.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
It's hard to hear anybody. Your microphone can't hear.
Yeah, was it on? Yeah, just to reiterate,
Yeah, closer.
I emailed our counsel, Mr. McGuire, this morning to advise that I sit as an assigned judge in both Contra Costa County and Yolo County periodically, as well as Solano County. And it was his advice that I abstain from voting on the matter involving Contra Costa County and with respect to SB 844, and that is my intent. Could everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Looking now to the board for further comment. Seeing none, I would open it to public comment at this juncture.
Madam Chair, we have about 20 speaker cards. I'll just call you guys up, about 3 or 4 at a time. You line up over here, the entrance is taking some time. Kush Ganapathe, Michael Kerr, Kathleen Green, and Wendy Hershey to start it off.
And Tracy, are you doing the timekeeping?
I can do that, Tracy.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
And we just have a request to turn up the volume louder that's still not being heard.
My apologies. You have to get very close to the microphone for your comments, and each one of the board members need to be reminded of that also.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, this is Ankush with the community group ACE. Came to speak against the proposal for Contra Costa's jail expansion. Aside from the public opinion that's pretty overwhelmingly shows that people do not support the jail expansion, there's a lot of issues with basically public trust and honesty with the sheriff's department itself that's well documented. Aside from that, I know y'all focus more on the proposal itself and eligibility for SB 844. I know technically they say that they're reducing capacity of the jail, but in the proposal itself, they're increasing it by 416 beds as well. They're renting out about 20% of the current jail to the U.S. Marshals. So any person with any logic in the public can see, you know, what really it is, and basically to remind folks that here that there is strong public opinion against it, and you know, we're not buying the technicality excuse again. So we urge you to vote against it.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Kerr from Bay Point. I'm a member of the Contra Costa's Diablo Green Party, Veterans for Peace, Pittsburgh Resistance, and Our Revolution Contra Costa. I oppose the BSCC's providing any funds to expand jails in Contra Costa County. Instead, provide funds that will help keep people out of jail, especially our young people. Help people with mental illness or substance abuse related problems and keep them out of jail. Help keep people out of jail because they cannot afford bail money. Help provide services for those leaving jail and prison to help decrease recidivism. Affordable housing, lack of jobs, low wages, and mental health are problems that need BSCC attention, not more jails. We need more services, not jail cells. So I hope that you will not fund this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy Green. I'm a citizen of Concord and a member of Our Revolution and the Coalition for Racial Justice. I was brutalized in the Martinez jail for merely asking if they would turn down the television. I wasn't even in the cell, I was just waiting. I didn't want to call my daughter at 3 a.m. and wake her up and have her come get me, so I just waited. And I asked the deputy to please turn down the TV. There were a couple other women there, they weren't watching it. And he started to accede to my polite request. And then he goes, no, you don't get to make decisions. And I said, please, is there a reason why the television has to be on? And another deputy yelled, get her. And they jumped on me, bent my hands behind my back till I was bent in half, threw me in a cell,
and a great big deputy kneeled on my back till I couldn't breathe. Now, this was several years ago. I'm not trying to address that specific incident. My point is that I filed a formal complaint, and the sheriff's department investigated themselves and surprise, surprise, found themselves not guilty of any wrongdoing. And I called every agency I could find in the county and the state. At one point, I guess it was our Board of Supervisors referred me to the State Attorney General for redress. And when I called that office, they referred me back to my local government. It seems there's no one that the sheriffs answer to. And power corrupts. The very idea of jailing people is antithetical to mental health, obviously. It's been proven in many, many, many ways. And so I really hope you don't spend precious public funds on more incarcerated. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call three more, Tarnell Abbott, Larnell Wolf, perhaps, and Nori Clark.
I'm Wendy Hershey, and I'm a citizen of Concord. I want to thank you for the $6 million 3-year grant. This is the way I feel we should be using our money. I had to come here today and go over the heads of our sheriff and the 4 elected county supervisor who I feel have gone rogue. They want to buy a new jail with the taxes paid by hardworking men and women, even though a great majority of us strongly and vocally oppose this. If this were a measure put to the voters, it wouldn't make it. So I'm here because I trust you won't let them go ahead with this mistake. If I understood you correctly, that you use aspects of the proposals to make your decision about which counties should get the funding, and you have 10 categories or rating factors. And I see something wrong with this process. There's no rating factor for community approval. And I think that needs to be in this matrix. And the other problem with this is expressed in words of Albert Einstein, who fled Germany when Hitler was on the rise. He said, "Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted." And that's not to say that numbers aren't important. Numbers show that the United States already incarcerates more people than any other country in this world. Our new Attorney General wants to lock people up for even longer sentences. What kind of leadership is this? Are we going to go along with policies that have never worked and never will? I don't know what each of you wants to contribute to humanity, but I think you have a lot of power to intervene and stop an enormous crime from being committed by Contra Costa's Board of Supervisors and our sheriff. Please use your power. If good people like you resist, we may not have to end up like Germany during the rise of Hitler, with jails being used to lock up dissidents and undesirables and the vulnerable. This is part of something so
Excuse me
big.
for just a minute. Katie, was that the timer?
That was the timer.
Okay, I'll ask you to wrap up.
I'm wrapping it up. 4 members of our Board of Supervisors are wrong. Our Sheriff Livingston, who's in sync with Jeff Sessions, is wrong. And please don't let them go ahead with their mistake. Please get us out of the matrix. Please don't give money for a jail in Contra Costa County.
Thank you.
I'm trying to find a reasonable sound. I'm sorry, guys. Okay.
That's much better.
Thank you.
Good morning, board members. My name is Tarnell Abbott, and I live in Richmond. And I am here also to oppose an expansion of the West Contra Costa County Jail. Although the state would provide funding for this project, the local fiscal impact of $25 million for construction and $5 million per year for operating expenses is not acceptable. It comes at the cost of preventive services. We lost our only local public hospital last year. The cities of Richmond, El Cerrito, and San Pablo have opposed this jail expansion. And for doing this, our county sheriff Livingston threatened to withhold vital services from the city of El Cerrito. There is a false narrative that more cells are needed. What we need is to get out of the ICE contract, which would free up 200 cells. We need to release pre-trial non-criminal offenders, or actually offense detainees, I should say, because we don't even know if they've done anything wrong. And we need more mental health and homeless services. We need affordable housing, and people need jobs. The war against homeless, mentally ill people, immigrants, and people of color must stop. It is up to you to stop it, and you can stop it in part with not granting these funds to Contra Costa County. We don't need the jail expansion, and the people don't want it. Hundreds of people showed up last Tuesday at the Board of Supervisors meeting in our county to oppose this project. So please listen to the people and do not be bulldozed on this by people who don't listen to the people who put them there, because we can elect them and we can unelect them, but you can prevent a debacle. And please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound
Thank you
of
very much.
cure.
Yes, I'm Ronell Wolf, and I'm from Richmond, California.
I think you're gonna have to speak closer.
I'm Ronell Wolf, and I'm from Richmond, California. This is the big issue with jail expansion. You know, everybody is talking about their concern, but when you look at the situation, it's the scale. You have cities that need resources, and then you have the jail expansion. And then we put money in the jail expansion, the scale will go down. This is the cities that need resources. But if you give these resources to these cities, you know, people say housing, jobs, schools, that's what the community needs. They don't need a jail to house people when there's no resources in these communities. So I appeal to you, whatever decisions you make is gonna have a profound effect anyway, how you look at it. It's gonna have a profound effect on people and how they live their lives. But what we need is to balance it out. And that's resources in our community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dory Clark, and I represent the Unitarian Universalist Church in Kensington, the Social Justice Council in Contra Costa County. I would request the board to deny the expansion of the West Contra Costa County Jail, as already 20% of the existing cells are being used for ICE detainees. The request for additional 400 cells under SB 844 does not comply with the statute. In addition, 70% of detainees have not been convicted, are only there because they cannot afford bail and are poor. I think a reform of that situation is also needed. I understand the process by which you've scored this, and I'm concerned about your conclusion that a major capital infusion into the county with the building of this jail cannot be reversed. Once it happens, it's done. But that wasn't, but you were unable to follow up to make sure that also in the proposal, the annual operating budget fulfills the aims of the proposal. The only way to determine this is to closely read the operating budget as outlined in the proposal. The CCC proposal as presented to the community is not to increase the number of beds and but to also improve mental health access for those perpetually caught up in the criminal justice system. If that is one of the goals of the sheriff's proposal, as we have been told, a look at the annual operating budget is puzzling. The operating budget of $5.1 million only allocates $750,000 for mental health professionals, one psychiatrist, and one other
I'm
mental.
gonna have to ask you to wind up, please.
Okay, one more sentence. In contrast, $2 million is allocated for additional deputy law enforcement offices. That is not the way our priorities should be distributed. Thank you.
Carol Johnson, Susan Heidblum, Claudia Jimenez.
Good morning, everybody. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming and thank you all for listening. I'm Carol Johnson, a resident of West Contra Costa County, and I would strongly encourage all of you to deny the petition from Contra Costa for this jail expansion. But I also need to thank you for the $6 million that we will get for the community program. But that pales in comparison to the $70 million that you were going to award our county. So that's a huge disparity, and more emphasis should be put on community programs and not the whopping $70 million for the jail expansion. Across the country, we see that other cities and other states are moving away from mass incarceration. So we should be following the examples because our system does not work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see Claudia Jimenez. Melvin Willis, LaDamian Flowers, and Edith Pastrana, please.
Good morning. My name is Susan Heidblum, and I'm from Richmond. And I want to talk about the fact that I don't believe kids today have much of a chance, particularly kids of color. When I grew up in the 50s and 60s, my father, who never earned, at the peak of his career, never earned more than $25,000 a year, was able to buy a home, raise 4 kids, and send 2 of them to college. What does it look like today? The middle class has been pushed down into the lower class. The lower class has been pushed down into hell. We see kids that are struggling. The public schools have been defunded. They're not getting the taxes that they used to get. Even if they're smart enough to make it through public school and manage to get into college, they're faced with a terrific tax debt. I'm sorry, a terrific fee debt. Kids don't have much of a chance today. The last thing we need to do is to put money into jails. Put money into incarceration. We need to save these kids. We need to put money into mental health, into diversion programs, into drug addiction programs, anger management programs. We don't need more funds for jails.
Thank you.
My name is Melvin Willis. I'm a Richmond resident and organizer with ACE and one of the elected Richmond City Council members. Richmond and El Cerrito and San Pablo have, all 3 of them, sent letters in opposition of the proposed project for the West County jail expansion. We understand that this board is only looking at the numbers and making sure that the projects are meeting the criteria for them to be eligible for this funding. And it's up to our County Board of Supervisors to decide whether or not they want the sheriffs to submit the proposal. But time and time again, over the last few months, over the last few years, when this proposal for the West County Jail to expand it has come forward, community members have constantly turned out in opposition to it, because they want to see their taxpayer dollars go to other critical services. And if this funding gets approved, a lot of our services that we're looking at are looking to be slashed just to match the funds required to make this proposal go forward. Each and every single county board of supervisors, meaning community members, are showing up in high numbers in opposition to this. Polls that are being taken throughout the entire Contra Costa County are showing that people want to see money go somewhere else. Over 2/3 of the voters of Contra Costa County. We cannot help, and you cannot help, the fact that our county board of supervisors has basically ignored the will of their constituents to make this project go forward. But you can be a part of supporting us and saying that support the community and not approving this, because we don't want to see this. We have other great needs that are needed in our community, and the last thing we need is a jail expansion. If this proposal goes forward, we are going to see high incarceration rate because we are not going to have the services required in order to survive in our community. So please reject the Contra Costa proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need to shut this door, it's backbiting, and we're getting
Place
on the website.
All right.
Hello, you all. My name is LaDamian Flowers. I'm a community organizer with the Safe Return Project, and I'm here to oppose the jail expansion. 85% of the Contra Costa voters has opposed this jail expansion, and 90% of those want to see this money go into youth services. We want to see in our communities, me being a resident of Richmond, more services and not sales. And me being a man also that's formerly incarcerated, know that in the West County Jail that the officers can be brutal. They can be very not vocal, not listening as far as when, people go out of bounds or whatnot, they can be very just brutal to you. So what will this look like for people that got mental issues, when they don't know about the boundaries or what not to do? Are they going to be beaten, just because of their mental state? So we also have to keep that in mind also. And I urge, me being an advocate for my community, that we do need more services for the mentally ill. They need services to get themselves together so they won't have to go to jail to get those services. So I advise you guys that you don't vote for this jail expansion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can call the next three while you're heading up to the podium. David Sharples, Rachel Tomakoff, and Kathy Harris.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Edith Pastrano, Contra Costa resident, and also with ACE. I'm here to speak out against the approval for the proposal for this expansion of the West County Detention Facility. I know that you've all been hearing the same comments around we need more services in our communities, not any more cells, and I'm also behind that as well. And I do understand that Contra Costa received the highest ranking in the process for the criteria that were met. And I just really want to say that there's a lot of distrust in our community with our sheriff, knowing that he basically ended a contract with El Cerrito to dispatch services to that community when he found out, I guess, that they were advocating in opposition to the West County Detention Facility, as well as San Pablo and Richmond. And what I want to say basically today is that although this board's job is to just look at the criteria and see that everything has been met for the proposal application, I really encourage you all to weigh in on this more than just what the numbers look like, more than just what you're receiving on the sheriff's end. Look at the community that's here today. We wouldn't be here if we didn't believe that there was hope that this could be stopped. We wouldn't be here, but we are. And we really want you all to look into your hearts, to look into the fact that there's many community members in not only in Richmond, not only in West County, but also East County as well, that are opposed to this jail expansion. So thank you for your time, and I really wish that everyone think about this decision not with a light heart. Thank you so much.
Good morning, members of the BSCC. My name is David Sharples with the community group ACE and a resident of Contra Costa County. I'm here today in opposition to the expansion of the West County Detention Facility. The first point I want to make is that the Contra Costa Sheriff Department's application does not meet the criteria set in SB 844. Nearly 20% of the existing bed capacity at the West County facility is under contract with ICE. The BSCC RFP says that a participating county with a request resulting in any increase in capacity is required to certify that the county is not leasing housing capacity to any other public or private entity. The other point I want to make is that mental illness within our jails is a really important issue and it must be addressed. But services only within jail is not helping our communities. As you know, there are a very large number of prisoners with serious mental illness in our jails, and jails tend to be very overcrowded. Crowding in correctional facilities is known to be strongly correlated with increased violence, mental breakdown, and suicide. This is an important moment, and you are faced with a choice. One approach is to build a large treatment jail in West Contra Costa County, with most of the beds to be used by inmates with mental illness. The other approach would be to divert a significant number of individuals with serious mental illness away from jail and into programs in the community. Mental health diversion, where a court adjudicates an alternative placement of a defendant with mental illness into a community program designed for his or her particular problem, is a well-proven and effective strategy. We need services in our community, not cells. I urge you to not support a grant to Contra Costa County to expand the jail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cathay Cairns. I'm a resident of Walnut Creek, and I'm here to oppose the funding of the additional building in Contra Costa County for detention. Others have spoken on the specifics about this. I'd like to give a little historical perspective. In 19th century England, they transported people to Australia. As young as 7 years old, they were considered adults if they stole a loaf of bread. I think we would consider that barbaric today, and that we approach things in a more enlightened way. I think increasing the opportunities for detention is not necessarily enlightened, and I would ask that you consider the future generations. We've looked at the past, consider future generations, how they would feel about the incarceration of these people, the necessity for it, and the financial burden that we'll be placing on them. And I would ask that you consider all of this very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following people, Suzanne Llewellyn, Erica Webster, and Maria Alagria. Could you come up, please? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Tomachov. I live in Pleasant Hill, Central Contra Costa County, and I do not want to repeat everything that's been said. What I would like to say is that I come to you as a parent and as a retired nurse practitioner with 25 years of service for Sonoma County. The service included direct medical services to people both in jail and out of jail. During my career, I have seen that what is needed for mental health services in jail is additional staffing, not additional beds. I recently heard about the $6 million that is being put into our county because it is the will of California and the will of California voters. The passing of in 2014, Proposition 47, and in 2016, the pre-release of nonviolent offenders. This is the direction our country needs to go. Mass incarceration has failed. I see it as cruelly ironic that we are being given $6 million for services at the same time you are approving a proposal that will suck $5 to $6 million per year from the Contra Costa County budget. The net improvement in our services and our diversion seems negligible. With that in mind, I strongly implore you to consider whether this proposal meets every criteria. And if it does not, please reject it.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Erica Webster, and I'm with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. Today, I'm here to state again to the board, on behalf of CJCJ and other community members, how disappointed we are and how this SB 844 process has gone. In terms of the lack of community engagement and the composition of the ESC and its minimal inclusion of community voice and the lack of representation by members of the communities that will be most impacted by jail construction. This ESC chose to read the SB 844 legislation in the most limited manner possible, largely marginalizing the legislative ask to rate counties based on their pretrial populations, how they plan to reduce sexual assaults in their facilities, and how they plan to implement in-person visitation. The limited number of eligible counties for this funding inherently created a less competitive process, which was worsened by the fact that this ESC chose not to set a minimum scoring threshold when scoring proposals. The staff for this ESC said that better, stronger proposals would naturally rise to the top of the pool. However, as we see in the agenda today and over the years, counties often relinquish funding, meaning that the newly eligible funding will go to the next counties in line. Even though the ESC may have agreed that those proposals were not the strongest, it didn't deserve the funding that we're applying for. While we understand that county jails need support after the passage of realignment, the overall overinvestment in incarceration by the state and its counties is exacerbated by the BSCC's continued reticence to allow for diverse ESCs, stronger community engagement, funding quality proposals, and making sure that counties are prioritizing alternatives to incarceration, not criminalizing mental health issues, and ensuring the safety and health of the people incarcerated in their facilities. Thank you.
I have 3 more speaker cards before you start. Marilyn Lucy, Steve Moore, Mabel Larry.
Good morning. My name is Suzanne Llewellyn, and I'm a 27-year resident of Walnut Creek, which is in Central County, which also opposes the use of these funds to build a new building in West County. I stand before you, a very powerful board, feeling quite helpless because our own Board of Supervisors is not listening to us. And you are unfortunately maybe our last resort. And I know you have to nitpick the RFP to figure out how you could reject this proposal, but I implore you to do that because our county wants to invest our funds in prevention. We want to prevent the youth pipeline to jail, the veterans are returning with a PSTD going to jail to find their mental health services. We really want our money to be invested in prevention, and that will reduce the need for any additional facilities and will hopefully bring us to a new vision of California that leads the nation in reducing mass incarceration. So I ask each of you to, again, like others here, to look into your heart and know that we are relying on you to represent the community. And we hope that you can find a way to do that in this complex process of denying a proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you again for allowing us to speak with you this morning. My name is Marilyn Lucy, and I'm a soccer mom from Alamo. I wanted to be here today because I want to tell you that this issue isn't localized to Richmond. Our viewpoints that are being expressed isn't localized to Richmond and to East County. The South County community also feels strongly against this. I'm part of an organization called Together We Will, and it's, other community people like myself. We don't have experience in the criminal justice system, but we know that this is wrong. I'm also a commissioner on the First Five Contra Costa County, and I oppose this for another reason. We have 6,000 students, young people that are on a waiting list to get preschool, qualities preschool. And as a special educator with a graduate degree in special education and family systems, we know, we've seen the research, that good quality education and care can set children up for a very different lifestyle. And I have a son that has special needs and he's of color. Those two variables alone predispose him to something, to an outcome that could lead to prison, except for the fact that I have personal resources where I can get him the help and the programs that he needs. As a mom, as a community member, as a human being, I want every child in our Contra Costa County to have those services available to them. As a taxpayer, I can tell you I do not support this. Our Board of Supervisors are not listening to us. So I want you to hear my voice as a soccer mom from Alamo who doesn't know anyone that's ever been incarcerated, that I care about this and I disagree with this proposal going through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the BSCC. My name is Mabel Lamb, and I'm a political organizer in Contra Costa County. I represent SEIU Local 2015, and we work with over 8,000 members in Contra Costa counties who are in-home support care providers. They take care of the community's most vulnerable. That includes the elderly, the chronically disabled, and a lot of our mentally ill population. We know it's programs like this that ultimately let these folks live safely and with dignity with their own home, and give them the space that they need to thrive. It's programs like these that we should be investing in, and we don't feel that the West County jail expansion is an adequate place to provide mental health support for these folks. It's my understanding that the Contra Costa Sheriff is using this as a justification in this proposal, and we would like to join our other community leaders in strongly opposing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Steve Moore. I'm the sheriff in San Joaquin County. I know there's been a lot of talk Contra Costa, so we're right next to them, but not quite there. After the last announcement on the 844 awards, we, in retrospect, went to look at our proposal to see where we could improve in the future and do others. As we did that, it appeared to me that there may have been an omission regarding the preference under 844 for those counties that had not received a full award. And in going back through the entire legislation, it again appeared to me that that may have taken place. Therefore, I forwarded a letter to you, Madam Chair, and to other members of the board, and hope that you would review that and take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have a copy of that letter?
Have one here.
I think we're going to need to make copies of that.
Yeah.
That includes all the cards that I have.
Turning to the board for any comments. Betsy.
Is it working? Yes, you can hear me. So I've been sitting here and talking very closely to my colleague, getting a clear understanding about the board's role, specifically when it comes to grants or RFPs that are reviewed, and making sure that the entities that apply for this money falls in line with what's required by the RFP. And I am hearing the community's concerns that they're taking the appropriate steps to talk to the entities that would have been available to maybe stop the process earlier on and hear their needs so that the county didn't even apply or was able to apply and the board allowed them to then go forward and apply. And that with the RFP process, this particular county that's in question, that where a lot of the concerns is brought up, they fell very well in line with what was required. But at the same time, I do have a little bit of heartache, if you will, with the fact that our title is the Board of State Community Corrections. And it seems like we should be primarily focused on community corrections, and that if we're doing our job adequately, we should never need expansions in jails. I'm still getting my feet wet, so I'm trying to figure this out. But that if we're doing it in a way that's appropriate, eventually we should put jails out of business for the most part. Like, we should have people that never go back, and our interest is to rehabilitate and not need to expand. So I'm really coming from a place of trying to say that the onus should be on the entities and the counties. And I know that this particular proposal had a lot of points of rehabilitation in them, but we really have to move forward to a place to make sure that we're changing the way we do things, even with the money we currently have, not just looking for more money to expand more space. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that. So I don't really like it.
Anyone else?
Just a couple comments. I'm new to the BSCC, and certainly not new to this topic or issue. I want to thank everybody who came. You drove from Contra Costa County, it sounds like, and I'm sure that wasn't an easy drive today. So I think that in and of itself is indicative of your feelings about this. I'm a little bit frustrated in that your board has agreed to accept this funding. And you say that they're ignoring the will, and you talk about polls that are overwhelmingly against this, but you still have your elected officials who say that this is necessary for your county. So, you know, my understanding of this board's responsibility is we look at the funding, we look at the requirements for the funding, and we put together an ESC, which Sheriff Dean chaired. They review the proposals, score them, and our job is to determine whether they were appropriately scored, and if they meet the criteria, then our job is to administer the funding to them. So our hands are a little bit tied with respect to what you're asking us to do, at least in my opinion. I would ask, and Sheriff Dean, maybe you can answer this question, because I wasn't here for the discussion about the actual proposals. Were most of these proposals to replace beds or to add beds in the local facilities? And were there preference points for replacement of beds versus increased capacity?
John, why don't you talk about that? That way we'll get the facts clear.
I don't have the exact bed count breakdown. Most of them were to replace existing beds or remodel the existing facilities. There were quite a few proposals where there were increase in beds. So it was based on each county. There was no specific preference points given to counties based on whether they were increasing or decreasing beds. That would be up to each individual ESC member when they were doing their scoring of the needs of the county, which was one of the criteria for that.
Now, were there also, was there language in it that you had to provide programming space as well as part of your proposal?
Yes, yeah, programming space and mental medical health was one of the key items in this legislation. So that was one of the main purposes for this legislation.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a comment and absolutely appreciate the input from the members from Contra Costa County, understanding that the frustration out there is real, and the concerns are real. I think this board has been charged with overseeing a number of pots of money that serve many competing interests in the state of California. And as we do that, we find ourselves in a position where we're looking at construction money for jails and programming needed in jails and appropriate humane settings to hold offenders in facilities, reckoning with the fact that that's a reality in the state of California. Certainly, ultimately, we hope a reduced use of those beds would be out there and available down the road. But as I say that, I am reminded of my time when I served as a local in a county where realignment came to us as a reality, and we were reckoning with the fact that we would have offenders that would stay longer in our local facilities, and that would require appropriate programming space and space where they could be held humanely in a jail system in the state of California that had been long overlooked and really did not meet the needs of many, many communities. And our governor committed at that time to addressing those shortfalls in our system. I support those needs. I continue to believe that programming has to continue as we incarcerate individuals, and that the facilities and the settings that we are holding people in address the simple humane needs of individuals that end up in incarcerations. The system is not perfect, but I am happy to be involved in that continuous improvement in the state of California, where we actually have reduced the incarceration for our state, and we lead the nation in that reduction. With that said, I understand your frustration, but I tend to believe with my colleagues that that is a local conversation. And if that is a frustration to the individuals in this audience, it is best addressed locally, following our rollout of a statute that is provided to us that we have little play in, lack of a better way to say it, that we are charged with taking this statute and rolling that out in the community in a fair, transparent, and consistent with what the statute is designed to do. And I think we've done that. I think I appreciate Sheriff Dean's leadership in this. I realize that there are often, on everything we do in this board, opposing opinions. And I continue to think that we have done an excellent job of rolling this out, and I really support the recommendation. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I have a question for staff, a couple of things. Can somebody respond to the some of the assertions made today that it is either possible or within the jurisdiction of this body to make a determination about where funds go? If this board said no more jails, we wanted to go to servicing, is that something that is possible? Does this board have that capacity? Is that before us today? What is our possibility today in light of the concerns of the community that I find to be remarkably passionate, powerful, authentic, incredibly diverse group of folks that are concerned about the future of their community and what is always a limited pot of resources. So if you could address that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Secondly, these conversations, this application process is lengthy. There are rules, requirements, so it takes time. And this process has been in place for some time. Some things have changed per voters in California. I think making a distinction between what are inherently criminal and violent folks that need to be incarcerated and folks that really are struggling with mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and that perhaps there should be a paradigm shift in the way in which the criminal justice system reacts to these two populations, and that there perhaps should be some more specific resources designed in a new way. With that said, It would appear as though the demand for jail space may be changing in California. I can't say that with certainty today. So my second part of my question would be, how does this body, how should this body think about those potential changing demands when we're confronted with, excuse me, this kind of expenditure and moving forward? If you could help provide some context for that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I can field through the chair certainly the legal questions about what the legislation requires of the board. The SB 844 and then the prior legislation that all established these construction programs sets aside lease revenue bond authority that can only be used specifically for the construction of local detention facilities under the jurisdiction of the sheriff. So the legislation effectively commands the board to put out that funding for the construction of those projects. Each of the prior funding authority that was given to the board, and actually was even predates this board, it was awarded to CSA initially and CDCR to develop those programs. Each of them had sort of different features and requirements of what was required of the locals in order to enact those programs. So for example, in this program, it said the criteria set forth, this round of funding mandated that in-person visitation be provided in the facilities that would be constructed. That was a new feature that wasn't in prior rounds. And each iteration sort of provided different criteria, which the board could then weigh, and what the ESC could establish different scoring criteria for. This legislation was passed in the summer of 2016. The ESC process began over a year ago then. Pretty close to being a year ago at this time. We've promulgated regulations. Those were filed in December, and the RFP was released shortly thereafter. So it's been a while since this process has been going on, and the SB 1022 was established in 2012. The original funding, AB 900 funding, which provided for some local jail construction funding, happened in 2007. So we're moving on to a decade of having these construction programs available to be funded. But as I mentioned, it's very specific that it's lease revenue bond authority for local detention facilities under the jurisdiction of the sheriffs.
So specifically, what can this body make a determination other than jail construction as it relates to the Contra Costa application?
No.
I have a question. Yes. First
a comment. With all of the different funding that we've seen over the last several years, I'm surprised by the number of letters and comments from legislators, cities opposing this. So I definitely understand your concerns. My question is actually related to the last speaker of this. Speak up. My question is actually related to this letter that we received at the last minute. And can we have somebody address this? If I read it correctly, it's indicating that there was perhaps somebody on the list who had received funding previously. I mean,
I would actually, can we get a?
Before we address that, let me respond to that. I think that the appropriate way to address this very issue, and I will say that the letter had not come into my office. This is the first I have seen of the actual letter. I think that is the case with the rest of the board. What I will say, I think is the appropriate course of action on this is that the board can take action as they deem necessary. There is a process after the awards that could address this type of concern, and I do not think this body is in a position to make a finding one way or the other on this issue. So
But could this body actually just find out if there's a real serious legal challenge presented in this letter from our council from San Joaquin?
Yeah, I would continue to say that we would proceed today, and if there is a real substantial issue, that there is another venue to raise that issue and that we should proceed in that fashion rather than address this concern at this juncture.
Thank you.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Budden?
As long as this board can be well informed as to what's happening with San Joaquin and if we are really we have an issue here.
Council, I don't.
I'm happy to address that question, Madam Chair. As I read the letter, and I had not seen the letter prior to now, as well as the argument is that San Joaquin County had received a partial award, and the SB 844 legislation provided for funding to be available to counties, to only counties that either had received no award or had received a partial award. And my understanding and reading of that is based on that language in our RFP, we predetermined who would be eligible for that funding. So for example, Sheriff Dean County, who received funding in a prior award, was not eligible to apply for this round because his county had already received an award, which is why we also made him chair of the ESC this time around, and I want to thank him again for that. In which case, the eligible counties, or any eligible county, were those that had not received an award or had received a partial award. But there is no, in my reading of the statute, there is no preference to have been given to a county that received a partial award first. That should move to the front of the line ahead of counties that have received no award. It just determined who would be eligible and who would not be eligible.
So in Sheriff Moore's example, if he felt that, if he disagreed with your interpretation, there's a due process in place where he could appeal and try to get resolution to that question, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Budden.
So, wow. I'm definitely concerned, frustrated, torn, all of the above. I definitely believe in more services and better education and less jails and more diversion and way more youth programs. I'm sponsoring the bail reform bill, one of the sponsors, and I do feel like our current county jail system criminalizes so many people just for being poor. So this is a real head scratcher for me, and I'm really kind of most frustrated at your Board of Supervisors, who seems to not be listening to those that they represent. And your other local elected leaders, including your DA, who is fighting his own criminal case right now. And it's really nice to see the citizens of Contra Costa come out in a very kind of diverse, educated, and passionate way to oppose this. I really hope you do something about those elected leaders that aren't listening to you. And it would seem to me that there would be a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that would look at waste like this when it seems like these cells really aren't needed, and not really take a serious look here. I also thank you for CJ's comments. It is interesting, and I think it's something to look at as a board, where we have ESCs like our Prop 47 ESC, where 75% of the people on the ESC are people from the community, like my colleague said, the Board of State and Community Corrections, where this ESC had 10%, one person that represented the community on the ESC. And I think you'll hear today, we're about to give away 103 million of Prop 47 savings, where 70% of it's going to the community. So I do think we have to look at that ESC process a little more. On the flip side, this is, I mean, you guys know this. I mean, you said it in your own speeches. This is like the last leg. It's like the legislation happened, that couldn't be stopped. The board decided to take that issue, that couldn't be stopped. The ESC made their decisions, and here we are right now. And I will say, Sheriff Dean is one of the most honorable people I've ever met. I've come to him on multiple juvenile justice issues, and he has gone against many of his colleagues in supporting keeping kids out of the system and bringing kids home and handling kids in the community where they belong. And so for me at this point to vote against his ESC, to vote against this when we haven't even read the proposal, that to me is a bit problematic, because all we're voting on right now on this board is, do we trust their recommendation based on the factors that they had to rate, not community input, which may be a problem in this process. So that's where I am. This was money put in the budget by this governor, the governor that has paroled more people than any governor over the last 100 years. And I know he has even more he wants to do around reform, sentencing reform, etc. So I just wanted to put it out there how frustrated I am by hearing from you guys, because I agree with absolutely everything you said. I wish I could have been involved earlier in the process, or I had a voice earlier in the process. And I really want to thank you guys for your heart, your soul, your conviction. I think you're right here. And thank you guys very much.
May I ask council to comment on the remark earlier? One of the speakers indicated that a certain percentage of these beds have been put aside for ICE, and that is somehow should have been, or there's an impression that should be disqualifying moving forward. Can you comment on that, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. There is a provision in the legislation that talks about the fact that if a county, in order to be eligible for the funding, they have to certify and covenant in writing that they will not be leasing any beds for a period of 10 years. It's conditioned on the fact that their proposal has to result in an increase in housing capacity. In this particular case, Contra Costa has submitted a proposal in which they've actually indicated that they will be taking down beds. They are having a net decrease in housing capacity, in which case I do not believe that the prohibition on the leasing of beds would apply in this case.
Okay, thank you. I want to reiterate my colleague Scott Budnick's remarks about the incredible impression that you have made to this body, and the corresponding frustration with how little we can do, given what you've heard today from our council's position and this body's position on what the legislature has tasked the BSCC to do, and what we are doing here today. We are extremely limited. I agree entirely with the criticism that has been made. It's remarkable that this state is moving in a direction that is thinking very seriously about how we look at, treat, and think about folks that are in the system that have mental health issues, that are traumatized severely based on a whole host of factors, and of course with serious substance abuse issues. That is the most encouraging thing I have seen in the criminal justice system in this country. And I believe that we're moving in the right direction. And I also believe it is the best thing for public safety, which remains top priority for voters, folks in this state and in this country. So I remain frustrated. I do believe our hands are limited based on the discussion that you've heard today. But I just want to express my profound gratitude for the passion, the investment by this incredibly diverse group that has been here today, and encourage you to please keep pushing, keep fighting. You all seem like good people that really care about your community, and that you're part of the incredible great change that is happening, and that we are all making happen together. So thank you.
Any further remarks from the board? I then ask for a motion on this issue. Recommendation before us.
Move staff approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Budnick abstained.
Garrett abstains.
Toner or abstain?
I think the motion carries. Trying to do the math.
Quick count, yeah.
Motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you to the audience for their participation. I hope as you leave the room, you have a better understanding of the boundaries that we are posed with at this juncture, and I appreciate your input in the process. All right.
That was timely, could I have made that motion?
Yep. I'm gonna.
Yeah, we're just gonna agree to disagree on this. We don't set the process, the legislature sets the process.
Sure.
And
We're gonna take a break.
no, that's-
We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
We carry the